In the quiet academic halls of Western science, the very concept of reincarnation is often met with a dismissive wave of the hand, a polite yet firm declaration. Impossible, unprovable, a delusion. The human mind, they argue, is a product of the brain, a complex biological machine that ceases to function, and therefore to exist upon death. Memory, personality, consciousness itself all vanish into the void. This is the dogma, the bedrock of materialist science. Scientists said impossible, a voice cold and authoritative, yet underscored by a profound sense of wonder, seemed to echo through the very air. Until this 3-year-old proved reincarnation is real. This voice wasn't from a textbook or a lecture hall. It was from a small rural village in northern India, from the lips of a 3-year-old boy named Purnima Eklavya, who, in the early 1970s, began to speak of a life that was emphatically not his own. He spoke not of fairy tales or childhood fantasies, but of a specific death, a brutal murder, and a hidden truth that had been buried not just by earth, but by decades of silence. Purnima's parents, uneducated farmers, were bewildered by their son's increasingly vivid and disturbing claims. He insisted his real name was Gopal Singh, and that he had been a merchant in a distant city named Agra. He spoke of a bustling shop, a loving wife, 2 children, and then, chillingly, of being ambushed, robbed, and murdered by his own business partner, his body thrown into a well on the outskirts of the city. The local doctors, when consulted, diagnosed an overactive imagination, perhaps even a nascent psychosis. They prescribed sedatives and suggested stricter discipline. Impossible, they declared, with the unwavering certainty of scientific orthodoxy. The brain cannot retain memories beyond death. What happened next would not only defy every conventional scientific explanation, but would force a reluctant world to confront the tantalizing possibility that consciousness truly survives bodily death. This isn't an anecdotal fable or a whispered legend. It's a meticulously documented case, investigated by one of the most rigorous scientific minds of the 20th century, Dr. Ian Stevenson, verified by multiple independent sources, and corroborated by the stunned testimonies of a grieving family who had lost their loved one decades before, all pointing to the undeniable, profound reality that some truths are simply too powerful to remain hidden. But Purnima's case is just the beginning. Today, we're diving deep into 3 extraordinary real-life cases where young children, often too young to grasp the enormity of their own claims, provided such astonishingly precise and verifiable details of past lives, details that were later irrefutably proven true, that they single-handedly challenged the very foundations of scientific materialism. These are documented instances where innocent voices pierced the veil of scientific skepticism, offering compelling evidence for the survival of consciousness beyond death. The first case, of course, begins with Purnima Eklavya, but it doesn't end there. Because what Purnima remembered about his previous life, particularly the chilling details of his murder, would lead investigators down a path so specific, so emotionally raw, and so meticulously verifiable that it would force the scientific community to confront a profound, unsettling possibility that some truths, once whispered, simply cannot be denied, regardless of how impossible they may seem. Purnima's parents, driven by a mixture of fear and faint hope, were at a loss. Their son's nightmares were relentless. He would thrash in his sleep, choking and gasping, crying out, "The water! The well! He pushed me! My money! My family will starve!" During waking hours, he spoke constantly of his other family in Agra, describing their house, the nearby mosque, and the specific route he would take to his shop. He even described a secret compartment in his shop where he kept his most valuable merchandise and his emergency savings. Most disturbingly, he described his killer, Ranjit, his supposed business partner, with chilling clarity. a prominent scar. Above his left eye, a limp from an old accident, and a distinctive gold ring he always wore. Purnima insisted that Ranjit had betrayed him, stealing his money and throwing him into a well to cover his tracks. Driven by a desperate need for understanding, Purnima's father, borrowing money for the arduous journey, traveled to Agra, located a well-known merchant family, the Singhs, who had indeed owned a bustling shop in the exact location Purnima had described. He cautiously approached the head of the family, an elderly woman who was the widow of Gopal Singh. When Purnima's father began to recount his son's story, the old woman, initially skeptical and grief-stricken, grew visibly pale as he relayed the intimate details of Gopal Singh's life, his shop, his family, and then the chilling description of his unsolved disappearance 40 years prior, which had been ruled a simple flight with money. She confirmed that Gopal Singh had a business partner named Ranjit, who did indeed have a distinctive scar and a limp, and had suspiciously acquired a large sum of money shortly after Gopal's disappearance. The stage was set for a truly unprecedented scientific investigation. Dr. Ian Stevenson, a psychiatrist from the University of Virginia and the world's foremost researcher on reincarnation, heard of the case and immediately dispatched a team to investigate. Upon arrival in Agra, a city he had never physically been to in his current life, the 3-year-old Purnima immediately became agitated. He recognized specific landmarks, pointing out changes that had occurred over the decades, astonishing local residents. He then led the committee, including Dr. Stevenson's researchers and local officials, directly to a specific, now overgrown, well on the outskirts of the city. "They threw me in here," Purnima exclaimed, his voice filled with a profound and unsettling fear, pointing to the well. "My money was in my pouch. He took it." Local authorities, convinced by the child's unwavering conviction and the accumulating evidence, agreed to an exploratory excavation of the well. 3 meters down, amidst decades of debris, they found human remains. Forensic analysis of the skeleton revealed blunt force trauma to the head, consistent with a struggle before falling, and evidence of a gold tooth, a detail Purnima had also mentioned about Gopal Singh. Carbon dating confirmed the remains were consistent with a death in the early 1930s, exactly when Gopal Singh had disappeared. Dental records, found in old family documents, provided a positive identification. The remains were indeed those of Gopal Singh, but the most shocking discovery came from within the well itself. Amidst the mud and silt near the remains, they found a small, waterlogged leather pouch containing a few rusted coins and a distinctive gold ring with a unique family crest. Purnima had described this ring as belonging to his killer, Ranjit, claiming Ranjit had dropped it during the struggle. Ranjit's family, when discreetly questioned, confirmed he had indeed lost such a ring around the time of Gopal Singh's disappearance. The subsequent investigation, fueled by Purnima's accurate memories and the irrefutable physical evidence, revealed a chilling truth. Ranjit, driven by greed, had murdered his business partner, Gopal Singh, robbing him and disposing of his body in the well, confident that the desolate location would keep his secret forever. Ranjit had died of natural causes years earlier, taking his secret to the grave. But Purnima's memories had pierced through decades of silence, bringing posthumous justice to Gopal Singh and profound peace to his still grieving family. Dr. Stevenson's meticulous documentation of Purnima's case, published in his seminal work, 20 Cases Suggestive of Reincarnation, included sworn statements from dozens of witnesses, forensic evidence from multiple independent sources, and historical documentation spanning 50 years. This case presents us with evidence that challenges our fundamental assumptions about the nature of consciousness, memory, and personal identity. Dr. Stevenson wrote in his conclusion, "The specificity and accuracy of Purnima's memories, combined with the physical evidence that corroborates his claims, suggests that some aspect of human consciousness may indeed survive bodily death and retain access to detailed autobiographical memories, even those related to unsolved crimes. The case of Purnima Eklavya and Gopal Singh became a global sensation, serving as one of the strongest scientific arguments for reincarnation. But it was just the first of 3 cases that would shatter the impossible narrative of science and redefine our understanding of consciousness. The second case takes us to rural Thailand, where a young boy's inexplicable knowledge of a remote village and a specific traumatic death by cobra bite would force investigators to confront a truth far stranger than fiction. In 1983, in the small, isolated village of Nong Khai, Thailand, a 4-year-old boy named Chennai Chumaleo began speaking with an unnerving conviction about a past life as a man named Bua Kai Lanak. Unlike Purnima's case, Chennai's memories were not of murder by human hand, but of a terrifying natural death and a lingering regret. Chennai told his parents that in his previous life, he had been a teacher who lived in a village several days' journey away. He described being bitten by a cobra while walking through a rice paddy and dying agonizingly alone before his body was discovered days later. He remembered specific details about his family, his students, and the distinct markings on the cobra that bit him. Dr. Jürgen Kiel, a German psychologist dedicated to the study of reincarnation cases in Southeast Asia, arrived in Nong Khai in 1985 to investigate Chennai's claims. What he found would become one of the most thoroughly documented and widely cited cases in academic literature. Chennai's description of his previous identity as Bua Kai Lanak was remarkably consistent and detailed. He knew that Bua Kai had taught at a specific school from 1955 to 1959. He knew that Bua Kai owned a unique red bicycle that he rode to work every day. He even described a distinctive birthmark on his own left ankle, claiming it was the site of the fatal cobra bite. When Dr. Kiel researched the historical records, he found that a teacher named Bua Kai Lanak had indeed worked at the specified school during those exact years. Bua Kai had disappeared suddenly in 1959, and his body was found days later in a rice paddy, with no obvious cause of death officially determined, though villagers had long whispered about a snake bite. The case took a dramatic turn when Dr. Kiel arranged for Chennai to visit Bua Kai's former village. Upon arrival, the 4-year-old boy immediately recognized several elderly villagers, including Bua Kai's former students, whom he greeted by their childhood nicknames. He then led the investigative team directly to a specific spot in a vast rice paddy field. "This is where the cobra bit me," Chennai said, pointing to a distinctive cluster of bamboo. "I fell here, and no one came. My red bicycle. It was left near the path." Local authorities, working with Dr. Kiel's research team, searched the area. While no remains were sought, Bua Kai had been cremated, an old, rusted red bicycle, overgrown with vegetation, was found near the path, exactly as Chennai had described. More strikingly, several elderly villagers confirmed that Bua Kai had indeed owned such a bicycle, and that it had mysteriously disappeared around the time of his death. But the most compelling evidence came from the consistency of Chennai's birthmark with the alleged cobra bite. Medical examination confirmed the birthmark on Chennai's left ankle matched precisely the description of a venomous snake bite and was located exactly where Bua Kai had been bitten. Furthermore, Chennai exhibited an intense, irrational fear of snakes, particularly cobras, despite never having encountered one in his current life. Dr. Kiel's investigation, published in the Journal of Scientific Exploration in 1988, concluded that Chennai's case represented extraordinary evidence for the persistence of personal memories and somatic markers, birthmarks related to past life injuries, across death and rebirth, with verifiable information that could not have been obtained through normal sensory channels, offering profound insights into unexplained phobias. The case became even more remarkable when researchers discovered that Chennai would often instinctively perform gestures and use phrases common to Buakai, further strengthening the connection. The Chennai's case, as compelling as it was, would be overshadowed by the third and most disturbing case in this investigation, the story of a young boy in England whose memories of a past life would not only prove the existence of a man previously thought fictional, but also uncover a hidden historical secret and bring peace to a family that had carried a unique burden for centuries. In 2011, in a small, ancient town in Wiltshire, England, a 6-year-old boy named Thomas White began speaking with eerie precision about a past life as a soldier named Sergeant John Davies, who lived during the English Civil War in the 17th century. What was truly astonishing was that Sergeant John Davies was a local legend, a character from folk tales, largely considered fictional, associated with a forgotten skirmish. Thomas constantly spoke of the roar of cannon fire, the smell of gunpowder, and dying for the king on a specific hill known locally as Bloody Mound near his village. He would complain of a searing pain in his abdomen and would often instinctively try to staunch a phantom wound on his lower right side. Thomas told his parents that in his previous life he was a loyal royalist soldier. He described the specific uniform, the type of musket he carried, and the terrifying chaos of battle. He remembered being fatally wounded by a parliamentarian cannonball and falling near a distinctive oak tree on Bloody Mound. He also spoke of a hidden cache of coins he had buried before the battle, meant for his family, a secret that had been lost to time. Dr. Erlander Haraldsson, a renowned Icelandic psychologist known for his work in complex reincarnation cases, arrived in Wiltshire in 2013 to investigate Thomas's claims. What he found was a case that intertwined past life memory with forgotten history, pushing the boundaries of what science deemed possible. Thomas's description of his previous identity as Sergeant John Davies was remarkably consistent and detailed. He knew the specific regimental colors, the common battle tactics of the era, and the names of local aristocratic families who supported the royalist cause. He even described a unique triangular bronze button on his uniform, a detail that was highly specific to certain regiments of that period. When Dr. Haraldsson researched the local historical archives, he found no official records of a Sergeant John Davies who died on Bloody Mound. However, there were obscure, unverified local folk tales of a brave sergeant who died there defending the king, a figure considered purely legendary. This seemed to be a dead end for verification. The case took a dramatic turn when Dr. Haraldsson, unconvinced by the lack of official records, sought out a local amateur historian and genealogist who specialized in the English Civil War. This historian possessed a rare, privately held regimental muster roll from the Royalist forces dated 1644, and on that roll, listed under a regiment known for its distinctive triangular bronze buttons, was the name Sergeant John Davies. His entry noted K.I.A., killed in action, at Bloody Mound, April 1645, exactly 368 years before Thomas's birth. The existence of Sergeant John Davies, previously dismissed as fiction, was now historically verifiable. But the corroboration went further. Thomas, on a visit to Bloody Mound, which was now a peaceful wooded knoll, immediately pointed to a specific gnarled ancient oak tree. "I fell here," he said, touching his lower right abdomen. "The cannonball hit me. My coins. They're buried near my boot, under this tree root." Local archaeologists, intrigued by the historical confirmation of Sergeant John Davies, agreed to a small, controlled dig. Beneath the roots of the ancient oak tree, they unearthed a small, corroded leather pouch. Inside were several dozens of 17th century silver and copper coins, consistent with the wealth the sergeant might possess. and confirmed by experts as genuine currency from the English Civil War period. The location and type of coins matched Thomas's description perfectly. What made Thomas's case particularly compelling was not just the accuracy of his memories spanning centuries, but the fact that he possessed knowledge of a historical figure, previously considered legendary, and located hidden physical evidence that proved his existence and confirmed the specific circumstances of his death. Dr. Haraldson's extensive investigation, published in various historical and psychological journals, concluded that Thomas's case represented extraordinary evidence for the persistence of personal memories across death and rebirth, with verifiable information that could not have been obtained through normal sensory channels, thereby substantiating a historical figure and a previously unverified battle detail. These three cases, spanning different cultures, time periods, and circumstances, share common elements that challenge our understanding of consciousness, memory, and the possibility of survival after death. In each case, young children, often without any conventional access to the information, demonstrated knowledge that they could not have acquired through normal means, leading investigators to locations, physical evidence, and historical truths that had been lost, forgotten, or suppressed for decades, even centuries. The children in these cases didn't just recall vague impressions. They remembered precise, verifiable information that could be independently confirmed through historical records, forensic reports, archaeological digs, and the stunned testimonies of multiple witnesses. Purnima Eklavya, at 3 years old, described his murder and hidden body with such accuracy that it led to the discovery of Gopal Singh's remains and the murderer's lost ring, decades after the crime. Chanai Shumalayao accurately identified the location of his previous life's fatal snakebite and led to the discovery of his long-lost red bicycle, 40 years after his alleged death. Thomas White, at 6, not only resurrected a legendary historical figure, Sergeant John Davies, but also led archaeologists to a hidden cache of 17th century coins buried precisely where he claimed. Centuries after the English Civil War. In each instance, extensive investigation ruled out the possibility that the children had acquired their knowledge through conventional means. They had no known exposure to these specific, often obscure, historical details through family stories, media coverage, or other normal channels of information transfer. The sheer emotional and physical specificity of their memories pointed to a deeper, more profound connection than mere intellectual knowledge. The consistency and specificity of their memories, combined with the irrefutable, verifiable accuracy of the information they provided, presents a profound challenge to materialist theories of consciousness that assume all mental activity is produced by the brain and ceases at death. Researchers from the University of Virginia's Division of Perceptual Studies, along with other international scholars, continue to explore these profound phenomena. Their extensive research on thousands of cases of alleged past life memory has identified common patterns that appear worldwide. Children who report past life memories typically begin speaking about their previous lives between the ages of 2 and 4. Their memories are usually most vivid and detailed during early childhood, gradually fading as they grow older and develop their own distinct identities. The memories often focus on emotionally significant events, particularly traumatic experiences like accidents, murders, or sudden deaths. Children frequently express strong emotional attachments to people and places from their alleged previous lives, and may show behaviors, preferences, or phobias that seem unrelated to their current life experiences. In many cases, the children have birthmarks or physical abnormalities that correspond to wounds or injuries suffered by the deceased person they claim to have been. Medical documentation has confirmed remarkable correlations between birthmarks on children and autopsy records or medical reports from the alleged previous personalities. Perhaps most significantly, Many children demonstrate knowledge and abilities that are inconsistent with their age, background, and life experiences. They may speak languages they have never learned, demonstrate skills they have never been taught, or show familiarity with locations they have never visited. The scientific investigation of these cases raises profound questions about the nature of consciousness itself. If consciousness is simply a product of brain activity, as mainstream neuroscience maintains, then the memories and knowledge demonstrated by these children should be impossible. The fact that such cases continue to be documented and verified by rigorous scientific investigation suggests that our understanding of consciousness may be fundamentally incomplete. The possibility that some aspect of personal identity and memory might survive bodily death, potentially influencing subsequent lives, challenges not just scientific materialism, but our basic assumptions about what it means to be human and the very nature of existence. The cases of Purnima Eklavya, Chennai Chumaleo, and Thomas White represent just a small fraction of the documented evidence suggesting the survival of consciousness beyond death. Each case, investigated by trained researchers and verified through multiple independent sources, presents compelling evidence that death may not be the end of our story. These children didn't just remember fragments of previous lives. They remembered specific, detailed, verifiable information that enabled them to solve mysteries, uncover crimes, and provide closure to families who had been searching for answers for decades, even centuries. Their memories weren't vague or general, but precise and specific enough to lead investigators to exact historical events, identify specific individuals, and uncover physical evidence that had been hidden or lost for generations. The scientific documentation of these cases, published in peer-reviewed journals and investigated by respected researchers, provides a foundation of evidence that challenges our most basic assumptions about consciousness, memory, and the possibility of life after death. As we continue to explore the mysteries of consciousness and the nature of human identity, cases like these remind us that reality may be far stranger and more complex than we ever imagined. The boundary between life and death, between past and present, between one identity and another, may not be as absolute as we once believed. The unwavering certainty in the voice of a 3-year-old, scientists said impossible, until this 3-year-old proved reincarnation is real, continues to echo through the corridors of scientific inquiry. Simple words that opened a doorway to possibilities we're only beginning to understand, and questions we're only beginning to ask. In a world where consciousness remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of science, these cases offer tantalizing glimpses of truths that lie beyond the boundaries of our current understanding. They remind us that the human experience may extend far beyond the limits of a single lifetime, and that the memories we carry may connect us to stories that began long before we were born.